So why would a business owner actually want to partner with private equity? Let's think about this from my day-to-day work life. The one that I come across most often is the business owner who actually has no interest in partnering with private equity. He or she just wants to exit the business. It might be somebody who's 60 years old and says, hey, Paul, I want to sell my business. I want to get the absolute best price I can for it. We run a full process, meaning we go out to private equity firms, we go out to strategic acquirers, we run a process, and we get to the end, and lo and behold, the private equity firms are leading in terms of terms and price. Now that owner has to look back and say, well, man, I never thought about partnering with a private equity firm, but this private equity firm said my business would be a great platform acquisition, and the price is right, the terms are right. I'm not wild about rolling. And when you say rolling, that means rolling some equity into NewCo. That means, for example, the private equity firm buying 85% of the business and the owner retaining 15%. But sometimes what happens is, I'll give you an example. Last year, I ran a process on a business that ultimately sold for $75 million. And the majority of the strategics in the private equity firms from a valuation perspective were in the 50s and 60s. We had one private equity firm that wanted that company as a platform and was willing to pay $75 million for it. But they wanted to put $60 million down in cash and have the owner roll $15 million into NewCo. So the owner would walk away with $60 million and own a percentage, or $15 million in equity, of the new company. And while the owner wasn't wild about that, was not interested in running that company going forward, the private equity firm made it a requirement that the seller roll equity and be a partner. And the seller looked at it and said, well, wait a minute. Even with the cash that I get at the closing, I am just as good as the all-in purchase price from everyone else that was at the table. So I got $15 million in rolled equity for free. I'm going to do that deal. Now, that particular owner sold that business last year, took a step back. His management team is running that business, and the private equity firm is now continuing to do add-on acquisitions. They've hired an operating partner, so they've gone out into the industry. They've replaced that selling shareholder. They put a new individual in charge of that business, and now they're doing add-on acquisitions. He got a $60 million, and now he owns 15% of NewCo. And when that private equity firm exits 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, he'll get ideally a return on that investment. Of course, that private equity firm is focused on at least a 3x return on that money. So in a perfect world, he walks away with $45+ million. That's the typical seller that I would come across on a day-to-day basis. I would say the next typical after that would be the seller who says, well, I'm 45 years old. I've got a business that's worth $50 million. I don't have any money outside of that, right? Like, I have all of my chips in this basket. The business is growing well. I think I can take it to 100 million, but it would be nice to have some additional investment capital. I certainly would like to take some quote unquote chips off the table. I'd like some liquidity. I'd like to be able to pull 5, 10, 15, $20 million out of this business now in order to buy the vacation home, take the vacation, do the types of things that I want to do, while still maintaining control of this business. I want to be the majority shareholder. I want to be able to call the shots, but I would like to have a partner that can help me do acquisitions, because I've never done acquisitions before, that can help me revamp my marketing program, that can help me hire a CFO. My CFO is a glorified accountant at this point. I really could get a new CFO, but I'm not quite sure how to do that or the best way to go about it. So in that particular case, we would run a formal process like we always do. We would bring in strategics always, because the strategics help us get an understanding of valuation and option. But we would end up with a small handful of private equity firms that would have expressed interest in that business. And the seller could now start to think through, do I want to sell 70% of the business, 80% of the business, 90% of the business? How much do I want to pull out? How much do I want to roll into NewCo? What sort of participation will I have going forward? Most of the time, they want to continue to be CEO. And so they might find themselves in a situation where they're a platform acquisition for a private equity firm looking to get into that industry in a particular geography. They can roll equity, remain on as CEO. The private equity firm backs them, allows them to do acquisitions, so on and so forth. private equity deals also come in the flavors of 100% change of control. And that's often when, you might have a lawn care business or a fire protection company or a waste management firm that is owned by a private equity firm. It is a platform of a private equity firm. And when I talk about platform, I mean, it's a portfolio company. You've got private equity firm ABC, has a fund, that fund invested in the waste management industry and owns waste management company XYZ. Now, waste management company XYZ, the portfolio company, is now going out making acquisitions, right? And typically, the targets of that XYZ waste management firm would have the ability to either sell 100%, do a 100% change of control deal with waste management XYZ, or at times would also be able to roll equity. So they might sell their business. Maybe they've got a $10 million or $20 million waste management firm. They might be able to sell that $20 million firm and sell only 80% of it and now convert some of that purchase price into equity of XYZ. So now they're a partner of the platform portfolio company, and they've taken some sizable capital off the table, 70, 80, 90%. That's a pretty plain vanilla deal. We do dozens of those every year. We see those all the time. I think from a participation perspective, when you start to think about private equity, the guys that actually have to be deliberate about this process is the second individual, the individual who wants to continue to grow the business, wants to take on a financial sponsor. And when I say financial sponsor, I use that interchangeably with private equity, wants to take on a private equity firm and partner with that private equity firm, grow the business and exit at some point in the future. That's when the seller needs to do a lot of due diligence on the private equity firm because they're all very different, yet they sound the same, even to me. And later in this series, I'm going to talk extensively about how business owners can think about the differences between private equity firms, how to do your own due diligence on PE firms, and how to make a decision. So if private equity has reached out to you, feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me on the contact form below in the description, as well as you can always reach me on LinkedIn. I'm Paul Giannamore. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you on the next one.